Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak. I'm said she, and you're listening to a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. And today we're talking about something rather important, which is emotional intelligence. Certainly, this is not part of my program. I'm going to talk about it relative to consciousness, which is my program. But this is a key component to that. So we're going to have a lot of fun putting these two ideas together. I'm so glad that you're with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here most Sundays at 10 a.m. And I want you to also know that all our shows are archived on Blog Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and YouTube. Now, before we do our prayer to get us all on the same page, I want to say that our show, we have very slow speed where I am right now. I'm in a very remote location. We don't have all the latest technologies available up here, so we do the best we can. If we lose you on Facebook Live, it's usually for only a few seconds, so stay tuned. But if for some reason we lose you completely, go over to Blog Talk Radio. You'll find us there. And the same goes for Blog Talk Radio. If I lose you on that, please come over to Facebook Live and we'll do the best we can. Those of you that hear me commenting on things that people have said to me, they're writing me on Facebook Live, which I very much appreciate. It's wonderful to hear from all my friends. I see you already clicking in. Thank you. All right, so let's do a prayer. Get me all centered and tuned into you, and let's go. Dear God, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you now under the banner of wanting to know more about ourselves, which really are you and is all about you. So we appreciate this opportunity to open ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do with this information. We also open ourselves to say we know nothing. For it's the you through us and through all things that know it all. And when we say, wait a minute, I do know things, we know that's just ego presentment, something that we have to work on, all of us. The ego child's mind loves to put ourselves forth like that. And we're here in these 90 minutes to divest ourselves of things like that so that we may know more fully who we really are as love, as you, as the energy of our highest and most productive and kindest and most beneficent selves. We thank you so much, dear God. We open to this now, knowing that you will full well tell us the next steps to take. We ask for great clarity and great courage as we go into this, and we say this in your name. And in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show. Thank you. And so it is. Okay, guys, here we are. I hope you've had a good week and a healthy one, too. Having had Omicron, I always want to mispronounce that, but having had Omicron myself, and I had a bad version of it. I hope that you will certainly not get that. Mm-hmm. All right. So today we're talking about emotional intelligence. This is just another way to talk about the ego child's mind and the highest self mind. This is a concept by, Goldman. I think his name is Coleman. Daniel Goleman, that's right. Goleman. He was the proponent of emotional intelligence. It says wonderful things, and I agree with him completely, I think. But again, the reason you hear me hesitating is my program is different. What I am trying to get you to do is go from the ego child's mind to the highest self mind, and again, the fear-based self to the love-based self. And essentially, it's the same thing, but we use different words. So the reason I thought this was particularly important to talk about today is so I could put that in perspective for you, and so we could bring forth some of his points that I think are an extremely good thing to talk about, especially right now. We came out of last week talking about loneliness. And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that can make us very lonely is having poor emotional intelligence skills. In other words, thinking more of ourselves and the self-focus and the ego child's mind than we have energy in the highest self-mind. You see? So let's talk about this. And as you do this, I'm sure you'll say, oh, I need to work on that. I need to work on that. Please do write it down. I think that so much, I mean, I'm a big note taker. I know everybody isn't, but there are some things that you should keep in mind. And because I'm challenging you so much in these radio shows, it's part of your healing to shake up your cells a little bit so that it releases some of the old stuck energies so you can go to the new order. That's the way of healing. One of our defense mechanisms is just a blank out. Blank out. And you won't remember what I said. So I think it's really good to have a notebook and pen there because we want you challenged, but we also want you present. And if you have not done a lot of work on yourself, you might not know how to stay present with something that really challenges you yet because your body perceives it as a threat. No threat. No threat intended. This is about change. And we don't know that change is good. Sometimes in the ego child's mind, it's pretty scary to us. But change is just the movement of God. It's just the movement toward what you want. You see? But the really scary thing here is that we have our issues arranged in a certain way that become a structure. And our ego child's mind tells us as long as we stay in that structure, we're safe. At least it may be hard, but we know that where the rocks in the water are, right? Good morning, Judy. Bless you guys. So great to hear from you this morning. You've been very faithful and sweet to tune in each week. I appreciate it. Oh, good. She says she liked change is just the movement of God. Yes. You know, one of the things I want to put on the table, you'll hear me say this maybe once or twice today, is that we perceive things as good. Thank you, darling. We perceive things as good or bad. You see, that's our child's mind, isn't it? Because I'm here to tell you that there's nothing in life that's good or bad. It's all just what it is. But it is our ego child's mind that puts labels on it. Okay? Good, bad, good, bad. So when we feel bad, oftentimes we tell ourselves, this is bad, because we perceived when we are children that God's deserted us in the good times. It's only there in deserted us in the bad times. It's only there in the good times, right? That's just simply not true. These are just, what do I want to say? Conceits of the ego child's mind. So we must grow past these things and challenge them and think differently. And this is what the show is about. And of course, this is very scary because it's change. And most ego child's minds see change as a really scary thing. When it's not, how's God going to move you? Except through change. Except through one door shutting and another door opening. Okay? Let's go. One of the things I also want to put on the table is emotional maturity certainly leads to emotional intelligence. And the other thing is true too. Emotional intelligence leads to emotional maturity. It's quite the loop. So without going directly to those things, we've got to realize that a lot of these things that I am talking about today are just components of the highest self mind, the love-based mind, the potential, by the way, of you. And that's what we try to do here. We try to get you to live in that space of your potential. We want you to think about that. We want you to challenge the parts of you that are still the ego child's mind. By the way, see, here's a label that I want to put on the table. It's really easy to say, oh, ego child's mind, bad. Higher self mind, good. No, that kind of Tarzan stuff doesn't work here. It's all good. It's all God. It's all good and it's all God. It's just high and low versions of it. Do you understand? The ego child's mind is still God. It's just a lower vibrational level of God because it's fear-based, but it's still God. This is what people don't understand about God, is that there are different degrees of everything. And you've got a lower component. Lower does not mean bad, okay? Just a lower component, lower vibrational component, which is a fear-based experience of God. And oftentimes, if it's bad enough, it's the fear-based absence of God belief. This is why I tend to think of atheists as being very spiritual people, because they believe totally in the absence of God. That's still God. Energetically, it still is. And then you've got the higher component. That's not the best one. It's just the fact that it is the love-based God, the one more in keeping with the God of love we've all heard about, and we have touched on, or you would not be even interested in a show like this. So, let's continue and learn more and see what we can come up with today. So this first article, which is a very good one, was written by Kendra Cherry. I love the name. 5 Key Emotional Intelligence Skills. In this, she kind of sums up what Goldman is saying. And so this is a very good place for us to start so we get all on the same page. Before the show is over, at least I hope before the show is over. Yes, Becky, it is. You know, so many of the things that we have learned about in early church teaching, like God is love, Becky's pointing this out. It's true. There are a lot of things that I find suspect, but it's true. Good morning, Sheila. How are you, darling? But God is also all the other things too. God is everything. But our potential lies in the God is love arena, because if God is everything, the pebble in the yard, the plant over here on my table that needs water, the tree outside the lake, the air, the birds, the dog at my back, who's being quiet for once. If all of that is love, then you are love and I am love, and we have a choice to live in the arena of the highest self, which is our most love-centered place, or to play all the games that the ego child's mind plays, the manipulation and the deceit and the ignorance and the confusion and everything else. I mean, our joy, really, is coming out of that mind and into the other. And that's why we study consciousness. That's why we study the things we do. And to not be biblical about this, because this really is a non-denominational show, but, you know, one of the things that Christianity really loves to talk about is 1 Corinthians 13, you know, about love. But all that passage is about waking up. I look in a glass darkly and then see face to face. It's like when you study consciousness, you turn on a light. You're not just looking in the mirror in the dark, but you turn it on and then you see face to face exactly who you are and that God is there and always has been. It takes work. to know that. And that's what we're doing. All right, so going to this article, emotional intelligence, let's go on and define it, please. It's defined as the ability to recognize, manage, and understand emotions. Hello, Dorothy. I'm so glad you're here this morning, all my dear friends. Thank you so much, sweethearts. Now, I want to put something on the table you might hear me talk about more than once, and that is this. Of course you'll understand other people's emotions by understanding your own. Of course. Of course. But what happens is, with a lot of us who are prone to avoidance, what we'll do when we first start all this work is we'll want to psychoanalyze everybody else and not ourselves. And guys, yes, you'll understand other people better. Wonderful. This is about really understanding you, isn't it? It is. I've said all along, and this is rather an abstract thing that I'm saying, but you're just going to have to put it in, as my mother would say, or said, because she's been long since passed, but she'd say, put this in your brain pan. And it was like, okay, put it in your brain pan. Think about it later. So what I would suggest you that goes in your brain pan is this. When you do work on yourself, at one point, you find everybody else, because everybody is working from the same ego premises, the same ego child's mind premises. And it's a marvelous freeing thing when it suddenly occurs to you that, wait a minute, everybody feels this way. And it's because you're no longer there. You're in the higher mind and having compassion on all because you're one of them. And now you know a little more. Okay? That isn't in an egoic way. It's just the way it is. All right? Nice, quiet wisdom. Okay. So Daniel Goleman, who created this, said in his opinion and his study, there were 5 components of emotional intelligence. Let's go through those so we understand them. The first one is self-awareness. I like that one because remember that there's a triad about consciousness, and it's a path if you'll follow it. It is awareness leads to consciousness, deeper consciousness leads to enlightenment. That's the triad that we work with. So you bet self-awareness is a huge component of the awareness piece. Now, let's go on and talk about what we mean by that and what he means by that. I've added 1 or 2 points of my own. Self-awareness, he says, or the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions, is critical emotional intelligence skills. Now, beyond just recognizing your emotions, it's being aware of the emotions and their effect on your own actions, moods, and, by the way, on the emotions of other people. Okay. This is one of the reasons, I'm leaving this text and saying this is one of the reasons that I recommend so highly you're going to the computer and looking up lists of emotions, and there are a lot of them, and finding the longest one you can find and printing it out. This becomes extremely important to use because look, I know what I'm talking about here because of the kind of family I came from. I certainly had a great family, but I want to tell you, It was not without its problems, of course. And one of the problems it had was that everybody squashed their emotion. Everybody was a strong reason thing, and we all squashed emotion. We all squashed emotion. My dad actually did something for a living that he probably shouldn't have done had he not squashed emotion. But he thought mentally, again, this is all in the mental realm, that the best way to make a living, I think when I came along, having a baby kind of freaked him out. So he chose a profession that somebody along the way told him he could always be valuable and make money there, and he would never be without a job. So that's where he went. Now, I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong. I'm saying he had certainly other sensibilities, and I'm not sure, looking back on it, and I'll never know for sure, but it seemed like he didn't enjoy it that much. It made him very tense. And, of course, this was before the days of computers, right, which would have made his life a lot easier, and QuickBooks and all the things that we have available. All right, so one of the things here is knowing yourself. And you have to know yourself on an emotional level. And many of us do not have the language that we need for the emotions we feel in the moment. Oh, we know when we're pissed off, we say we're really angry or we're enraged, right? But do you know, there are so many words that reflect the component of that. Are you irritated? Are you mildly annoyed? Are you more than mildly annoyed? Are you frustrated? What are the components? You see, otherwise we're standing under an umbrella of anger, and we really don't know what we're feeling. And this is why that list is so important. Because if you don't have a language, words that you can actually say, and this, and this, and acknowledge that and have an agreement with your body that they're your words and you feel them. This isn't just a mental exercise, guys. This is, where do I feel that in my body? Where is that? Do I feel that at all? And being completely honest with yourself, by the way. Because you remember, and I say this almost every week, but many of us who are in spiritual work say, oh, I'm a spiritual person. I should not be angry. Who made that rule? Come on. We need you to be real. Real leads to spiritual person. Sometimes, if that's your intention. But denying your emotions and denying yourself, absolutely not. Can't get there. So you're going to have to be honest. Okay? But it's extremely important for you to be able to call your emotions by name. If you don't, and those moments pass, and I'd say those moments pass in 24 hours, they're going to come around again and again because you're supposed to acknowledge them. And if they don't come around, they will come around again and again because you're supposed to acknowledge them. Now, part of this is you're just going to completely be blank about it. You're never going to learn anything from this. You're never going to see how you feel, which is what you're supposed to do in the work that you are choosing to do, which is consciousness. You're supposed to be conscious of all these things you're feeling and literate about these words. So please take me seriously. This is something that I think helps people tremendously in my practice. And I would suggest you do this. Please print out those sheets. When you're just sitting around watching television, take the sheet up. You see, we know these big words. I'm mad at so-and-so, okay? I'm really sad tonight because of this. But those are generalizations. And you keep in mind that all of the words on those sheets, oops, hello, what's going on here? This is Tuffle. Yes. And he is trying to get down, I think. Okay. I think it got too hot behind me. It's a warm day. It's getting to be anyway. Happy spring, everybody. If you don't call things by name, let me just say this. For example, let's take a relationship. If you don't work out your problems within 24 hours, when it's fresh in your mind what words you feel on that sheet, you know what will happen? It's swept under the rug. In 10 or 20 years, you're going to have a great big pile under that rug, and nothing's going to have a name because you have missed the opportunity to name it. And by the way, to resolve it in you. And you got a big pile there. What are you going to do with it? Well, you have 3 choices at that point. You either say, okay, we're starting over right now, and there is no pile, and I'm going to start over, and we're going to correct everything, and I'm going to say it now, and that certainly will help. But it takes a great deal of energy and awareness to do that. Do you realize? Because you're mad, you got all this activity in your nervous system saying, oh, you don't even know what you're mad about because nothing has a name anymore. Number 2, you can divorce. And number 3, you can start waking up. Start trying to work on yourself. Moment by moment by moment. And be literate about and articulate about words now. To become self-aware, you must be capable of monitoring your own emotions, recognizing different emotional reactions, and then correctly identifying each particular emotion. Okay. Self-aware individuals also recognize the relationship between things they feel and how they behave. Moving on. These individuals also recognize their own strengths and limitations. Here's an important one. They're open to new information and experiences, and they learn from their interaction with others. Goldman, I don't know why I keep seeing that as a C. Goldman suggests that people who possess self-awareness have a good sense of humor, sometimes, yeah, and are confident in themselves and their abilities and are aware of how others perceive them. Yeah, I'd agree with all that. I think that one of the words I'd use here is total, unequivocal self-acceptance. I think that we must accept. And many times there's confusion in the emotional realm about what we're going to accept and not accept. We'll think this is weak, this is not good, this is, people knew about that, oh my God, we're going to take self-doubt, throw it in the trash can. All these are energetic pieces of us. And if you're going to play in those feelings of your, those arenas of your own excellence, if you're going to be your potential, it starts with being human and having all those energetic pieces come back and for you to accept them as part of you. Even the negatives, of course. Yeah. Listen, I'm an ass sometimes. And I'm also really nice and really caring. I'm petty. I'm generous. I'm dull. I'm creative. I'm everything. Why are we pretending we're not? You need that energy back. Yes, thank you, Judy. Oh, I love that. She says, it's so amazing. As we allow our divine consciousness to open, we find that all is well. Absolutely. And Becky says that if we judge others, that is the opposite of love. I think that's a marvelous thing that you're saying. Both of you women are so aware. That's marvelous. Yes, to everything. What you're going to find on this journey is everybody. We try to belong so much, and yet it's our ego child's mind that keeps us separate. We're odd, we're different, we're not, oh, we feel this and they can't possibly understand that. You know what, here's a generality, but I think it's true. I think all of us don't trust love. We don't trust love to love us. We think something's wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you except the feeling in your head that something's wrong with you. So we've got to address these things and grow past that and realize that God is right there and everything is perfect and we are as it should be and all is well, as our precious Judy has reminded us. Remember what I said last week. There's a marvelous exercise called the 100% exercise. It's a great way to say, to make a real positive statement and say, I believe this to 100%, then start getting all the negatives about it. There's not one negative you can think of that isn't part of the ego child's mind in a fear-based experience, you see. So why not realize that everything's all right? I have friends now and clients who get there and who say, I just kept hearing your voice say, and why isn't that all right? Because everything's all right. Everything's a passage through, you see. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. Because everything does work for your good. Now, I think this recognizing our own strengths and limitations is so important to talk about, guys, because it's about acceptance of self. It's about acceptance of self. It's about letting all of that energy, however you want to call it. Oh, it's my self-doubt. If people saw how much I self-doubt. Look, self-doubt's part of everybody. But are you going to live there? Oh, I'm so selfish. Selfish is part of everybody. You're going to live there? You see, it's in the acceptance of the whole that we have a choice in the moment that defines our consciousness. Thank you, Judy. She says these are great reminders. And isn't that a good word? Because I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You're resonating with this because you already know it. You just need a reminder. There you go. Okay. So, Goldman says that these individuals recognize their strengths and limitations, are open to new information and experience. That's real important because I had some clients years ago that were not open to new information and experience. They considered it a threat. In other words, they had to be really smart. They had to know the answers. They locked themselves into that mindset. So any new information that came along was a threat. Even spiritual information. It was really interesting. We got past it, of course. Goldman suggests that people who possess self-awareness have a good sense of humor. And I want to say that again because that's probably true. But you see, there are other components to everything. A friend of mine sent me an article. Oh, now, what did they call this, though? I'm talking about something yet that I don't remember the name of. What was it? It was dark something or other. And the article went on to say that there were a lot of people that had real empathetic abilities, and we could read people well emotionally and that kind of thing. And yet, beware, they had very dark personalities filled with narcissism and this. Well, guys, the reason that I'm kind of making fun of this is, psychology is just throwing out this name, but we've always had these people. I mean, that's what Rasputin was. That's what a lot of people are. Right? But the lighter and the more loving you make yourself, the more you'll recognize those people are not part of your world, and you'll go on. Okay. So he puts on the table how to improve. So the reason that I tied that, I should finish. The reason I tied that to humor is some of these people are very charming. But of course, you, my dear, will look past charm. You can enjoy charm. But what makes people tick? What's the motivation? That's what reveals information to you, right? And to really get good at this, there is only one way to do it. And that is to know yourself that well. Because everything that everybody else is, you are. And if you don't believe me, if you're saying, oh, that's not true, you're working from that fear-based self. Because it is true. And we want all that energy to come back to you. It doesn't come back to you as Hitler. It comes back to you as information, as wisdom, as energy. For you to make a choice about investing in the highest self. And this world needs that right now. Hello, Becky. Well, I do think that's true. Art Costa, Becky says, states that having a sense of humor and a sense of wonderment are signs of intelligent behavior. I totally agree with that. You know, my challenge in doing a show like this is that while these things, like that line, are true, they're true for me, they're true for everybody I know, there are people out there in the radio audience who know people that that's not true for, that don't have a sense of wonderment, that don't have a sense of humor, that don't have, what are they doing? Well, their energy is going somewhere. It's all available to them. It's all inside of them. But again, their energy is going someplace else. It's being invested in someplace else other than this marvelous stuff. They've got to decide to open that part of them, you see. And I've said all along, and I guess this is a good place to, again, to say this, is there's no such thing as lazy. This is a good example of this. There's no such thing as lazy. There's no such thing as somebody that doesn't have a good sense of humor. They're just taking the energy of that, of whatever it is that they want to do or that people see they lack, and they're putting it into something else. I know a woman that doesn't experience pleasure very often. Why? She works 24 hours a day. No amount of talking to her will stop that right now. Well, that's where her pleasure and joy is. That's where her funniness is. You're making energy investments all day, and I want you to wake up and see where you're investing your energies for a balanced and happy life. That's all. Okay. So, how to improve self-awareness is what he says. Ask for constructive feedback. Ask for constructive feedback. I think that's marvelous because, I remember a woman years ago, and I love this story because it's so apropos to a line like that. Ask for constructive feedback. So I had a woman who had a very good corporate job, and she knew her boss liked her. I mean, she'd had a marvelous relationship with her all this time. The boss mentioned something to her as they're ending their private meeting and they're going into a boardroom meeting. And in the boardroom meeting, my client realizes that she needs certain information from the whole team if she's going to implement what the boss mentioned, and she brings it up, and the boss shuts her down like that. Shuts her down, and brusquely. And so what my friend did, who was at that time low on emotional intelligence, was that she went home and she went through all these levels. Oh, she's going to have to quit. you know, she's going to get fired. Somebody doesn't like her. You know, this boss obviously had things that she didn't like about her performance and blah, blah, blah. Everything was negative. That was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. By Sunday night, she came to the one conclusion that would have fixed all this to begin with, which is, I think I'm going to go talk to her about what happened. Why didn't she do that Friday? Why go through all these machinations? Well, somebody loves drama. You're going to go through those machinations. The whole point is not to do that and to address how you love drama and how you came from a dramatic family and how you do this to yourself, because that's an issue. You see? So on Monday, she went in there and she said, I'm trying to do something else with this because you're tough. And she said, and the boss said to her, oh, I forgot to tell you that I didn't want anybody else to know it right now. That was just for your ears. And I had to shut it down because everybody would have hopped on that bandwagon. And I want us to decide how it's going to look before we open it up to anybody. A lot of energy went into negative thinking and taking her down the toilet before she emerged and could do what she needed to do. Now, guys, there's something called a histrionic personality disorder. I think that's an example of that, not being a professional, someone who can diagnose that. I want to say, if you're prone to drama, it's going to sabotage you and it's going to not be good. And the amount of stress you put on yourself is ridiculous. And I think you ought to address that if you find yourself in that position. Now, I also want to put one other thing on the table that occurs to me after I ask for constructive feedback. And that is this. There's something called rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria. You can read about it on the internet. It's not something you're going to see in the DSM, but it's something that psychologists and psychiatrists are observing with people, and that is people that are ultra-sensitive to rejection. Do you think somebody with rejection-sensitive dysphoria is going to go in and ask for constructive feedback? No. So all of these things that we read about in articles like this certainly have exceptions to the rule. And what you need to do is address that first, along with your need for drama, if that's part of it, you see? Okay. First things first, guys. His second, what do I want to say, suggestion is to keep a journal. I think that it's a good idea to keep a journal of emotions, keep an idea, revisit things throughout the day. Don't let 24 hours pass without revisiting them, guys. The thing here, too, is because some of us catch on to emotion real fast. Some of us don't. I catch on in about 2 hours. I'm not as fast as some, but I'm fast, okay? I know some people that catch on in 24 hours to what they're doing and what they're feeling. It doesn't matter the length of time, guys, just that you do it. And you can make your emotions known if you're misunderstood. And for the sheer fact that it's healthier to express them. Learn new skills is another thing about self-awareness. I think this is a really exciting thing. When you do something, when you learn something new, we often see parts of ourselves that we haven't seen before. As many of you know, I was in the theater. I was director. I was an actor at one time, but a director, and loved to direct and see a project as a whole. And one time I took a sculpture class. Somehow I always knew I could sculpt. And whether the end product was good or not, doesn't matter. Sometimes I'll tell you that story. But it taught me so much, because I knew I would have been talking for 2 hours to get a point across, and all I did was take the palette knife and go like that on the bust of some of the face, on the neck and face, and that said it all. It was really quite the eye-opening experience. And perhaps I didn't need all those words to express. They also suggest meditation. I think meditation is a marvelous thing. A lot of people say they can't meditate, and I want to talk about that for just a moment. There's a kind of meditation that is good for everybody, because for years, transcendental meditation wasn't for everybody. Creative, what do they call it? When they tell you a story and you follow along the story, not good for everybody. Breath work, not good for everybody. But there is a kind of meditation that is good for everybody, and it's now available, and has been for the last 20 years, on the computer, on CDs. It's called brain wave technology. Brain wave technology. And what it does is it'll play you some music or a thunderstorm or waves. You can take your choice of whale songs. You can take your choice about whatever you want on the top. But what it does is it starts you in alpha. You've got 4 brain waves: beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Beta, the frantic brain waves, that keep us running. Alpha is the brainwave of peak performance. That's the one we're trying to get you to. The theta brainwaves are associated with pre-sleep state. The delta associated with sleep state. However, when I'm doing my work on you, if I'm doing a session on you, I'm going to all of those, and I'm not paying attention to what I'm going to. They're just available for me because there's information on every level of that for you. Okay? So these brainwaves that are deeper than the beta brainwave that we live in most of the time are very important. So now we've got these technologies that start us in alpha. There's one of my favorites because I like the music on it, which is done by, it's called Sound Mind, Sound Body. That's the name of it. It's by Andrew Weil, Dr. Andrew Weil. He's the bald doctor with the big bushy beard. And this is still one of my favorite things. The music is beautiful on the top. It starts you in alpha, drops you to theta, drops you to delta, comes back and drops you in alpha. And it's lovely. Now, do you have to sit down and meditate? No, you do not. You just have to not be communicating with anybody and doing something fairly repetitive. So I often have that in the background if I'm doing a session. I often have that on the background if I just need to calm down, and it's perfectly beautiful. So just don't use it in the car, please. Put you in an altered state. And what happens when you don't go into an altered state? It'll happen for 2 or 3 weeks that if you've got what the Chinese called a monkey mind, that is a mind that's flitting all over the place, you're going to have a hard time doing it. So don't give up. Just keep on, because eventually your body will accept that and you'll start matching those brainwaves and life will be good, okay? Really important. Let's talk about making that a part of your life, though, because in my opinion, I think we ought to be in walking meditations all the time. Really? Walking meditate? Yeah, I do. So if you do that for 2 to 3 months, every single day, not skipping a day, every single day, you will train your body to live in the lower brainwave states that it used to take 40 years of transcendental meditation to get to. I know, because I tried. It's an amazing technology that we have now. Please use it. This article goes on to say, pay attention to your thoughts and emotions. Well, yeah. Pursue your passions. Well, yeah. Practice mindfulness. I love that one. Notice they say practice mindfulness, because nobody who is still working with the assault of the nervous system from unresolved issues can be mindful. It's not going to happen. You're going to be in the past, you're going to be in the future, you'll hit it once in a while, you'll beat yourself up because you're not staying there. And guys, the only thing that helps you stay there is to resolve these things. So we're back to everybody needs some sort of energy work. Everybody needs some sort of psychology that helps them root out what the problem is. Problem here is, the reason I like the system that we have is it's energy psychology. In other words, we help you find what you don't want to find. It isn't what we know about ourselves that's locking us up. It's what we don't know, because the ego child's mind's protecting us from knowing it. The ego child's mind says if you just stay where you are within your limitations, you're going to be safe. It says it. But is it true? Everything you want lies outside your comfort zones. And our marvelous growth process is to get comfortable with the new, the evolving, the uncertain. Isn't that exciting? The next tip is to reflect on your experiences. Well, you know what? I think you should. Yeah. I think there is very little reflection sometimes on how you're feeling and what you are saying, doing, and feeling. And I think that we ought to know those things. I think we also ought to share those things. We're so ashamed of the way we feel. So many people are. Well, what do you think that is? That's the non-acceptance of how you feel. I think the most powerful thing is to say, honey, I feel this way. That's a powerful thing. Please just listen. Don't say anything back. I just need to say this. It's another powerful thing to say, here's the way I feel. It has nothing to do with you. Just give me time. It has nothing to do with you. It's all inside me, but I'll work it out. And that's powerful too, because many times we're just jerks. And our partners don't know why we're doing that. It's disorienting, isn't it? I've tried nothing to be but a good husband or a good wife, and then all of a sudden, what? So tell people that. Know yourself enough to know that you're being grouchy. You're being a jerk, but it doesn't have to do with them. And if it does have to do with them, take your time, come off your high horse, figure it out, and then have a nice, quiet conversation, a discussion, because they have a point of view too. And when you dominate the conversation, you're not giving them their point of view. You see? The next thing they say to fix this is to set goals. Yes, I think so. And keep them small and one step at a time. When we don't set goals, and when we also think, I've got to accomplish this all at once, we lock up. It's a trick that the ego child's mind does. We get overwhelmed, you see. It keeps us in our limitations. Use positive self-talk. Yes, indeed. I'm going to talk about this at length. I didn't realize we would be on this. This is going to be a series, I think, because I've got a lot of suggestions about this, and we'll talk about it next week too. Work on building. The next point is to work on building a growth mindset. The first story that I think of coming to that is people that come to me and they'll say, should I stay with this person or should I go? Should I stay with this person or should I go? I'm not very happy. What should happen here? And the fact is, it's never about staying and going. It's about where can you most grow? And where are you at peace about growing? With that person still or alone? That's what it's about. It's about growing. So I think that growth mindset is extremely important to have. And certainly, if you're doing consciousness work, what in the world makes you think? What in the world makes you think you can do it without change? Change is essential. Hello, darling Jay. I'm so glad you're with us today. God bless you. I mean, we can listen to shows like this all day long. We can read all the books that we write about these things. But until we are allowing ourselves to change and evolve and grow, it's just so much mind chatter, you see. And then I want to put my own 2 cents worth here. Not that I haven't been doing that all along. But I want to remind you again, nothing is good or bad. It's the ego child's mind that's putting labels on things. We are putting labels on things. Our judgment that makes it so. And our judgments have to go, because you can't get to the place where you say, everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. You can't get there until you believe that nothing's good or bad. You're just watching it spin out. It may hurt. Let it. You're not going to die. Keep the energy going till you get what you want. All right, number 2. Well, that was number 1. Number 2 is self-regulation. Let's talk about that. The article says, in addition to being aware of your own emotions and the impact you have on others, which, by the way, emotionally immature people never think of. It's all about them, right? Emotional intelligence requires you to be able to regulate, manage your emotions. This does not mean, by the way, putting your emotions on lockdown and hiding your true feelings. That is not what it means. But so many people are in an all or nothing mindset. That's the ego child's mind, by the way. All or nothing. I either have to decimate somebody or I have to, silently suffer. Oh, really? That just says you better confront your all or nothing mindset. Because what this really means, this emotional intelligence self-regulation, is about waiting for the right time and place to express your emotions and, here's my addition, expressing them kindly and the best way you know how, from the higher self. Self-regulation is about expressing your emotions appropriately. Tearing your partner down is not appropriate. Knowing that they're going to love you no matter what, no matter how hard you make it, is a bloomin' selfish reaction. People who are skilled in self-regulation tend to be flexible and adapt very well to change. Here's that word again, change. They're also very good at managing conflict and diffusing tense and difficult situations. Why? Because they are open to caring about the other person, caring about the way things sound, putting hard topics on the table in gentle and loving and tender ways. All of that's available in the higher self mind. In the ego child's mind, you try to do that, it's going to come out as all about you. People with strong self-regulation skills also tend to be high in conscientiousness. They're thoughtful about how they influence others. And they take responsibility for their own actions. Oftentimes, when people don't do this well, there is no responsibility. They blame others. And sometimes the blame is just so dumb. You weren't even in the room when something broke. But they can't handle it. It's like they can't, they've got to have an explanation for this, and the only explanation they can come up with is you did it. What? Look, guys, things just happen. Things just happen. Things that you can't anticipate just happen. Why isn't that all right? It is. And if you think it isn't, look at the ego child's mind and what you're saying to yourself. Okay. So, ways to improve self-regulation. Some of these will sound familiar. Certainly understand, pay attention to your thoughts and feelings. You know, a lot of times, this sabotages people. A lot of times, something bothers them in the day, and they don't acknowledge it. And so they get home at night, and they decimate their families. Because something bothered them earlier, and all that anxiety and all that annoyance and all that kind of weird, ugly feeling that you are feeling has to do with your not acknowledging that to yourself when it bothered you and figuring out what that was about. It's called deflection. We will take something here that's only about this and we'll put it on somebody else. Why would we do that? When really it just takes our knowing ourselves better, right? I also know that concerning the acknowledgement of thoughts and feelings, Jay has asked, over the last 2 years of restrictions, of quarantine and other restrictions, have buried emotions surfaced? Well, of course they have, but buried emotions surface all the time. It's just that they are there. Sometimes people are more conscious of this because of the stressors in life. And that we've just gone through 2 big years of stressors, or I should say 2 years of big stressors. Yeah. A lot of times people have been alone with themselves more so than they're comfortable with. Yeah, things come up. Okay, now going back to what I was saying, a lot of times we miss what bothers us because we're saying to ourselves, that shouldn't bother us. That shouldn't bother us. Oh, really? Well, it does. So deal with it, right? Jay has just asked, what are some of the triggers? Is that way I'm interpreting what you're asking right now? What are some of the triggers to feeling bad and have buried emotions surface? Well, you know, we talked about one last week. Quarantine. The loneliness that comes with spending time with yourself. What I'm talking about right now. Whether you are emotionally intelligent enough and whether you can actually go with the changes that are occurring in the world right now, or whether you're resisting them. Whether you're angry about them. All of that, you see. And much, much more. You know, the thing here is I can talk about these generalities, you know, and talk about whatever is popping in my mind. But the bottom line is, who are you? How is your structure, your egoic child's mind structured? Let's get that. Let's start releasing that so that you'll have more energy in the highest self-mind. And you'll be happier and you're able to take that energy and apply it to what you want. It's a happier life. Okay, so now we're back to how you can improve self-regulation. The next one is build distress tolerance skills. Let's break that down for you for a moment because I think that's a lofty way of saying you have to face reality. You're going to feel bad sometimes. You're going to be hurt sometimes. You're going to feel like you've made a mistake sometime and feel pretty bad about that. and all the other things that make us human. When we're little kids, we build fantasies around things, or we'll race ahead instead of staying in the moment where the information really is and what we need to do to fix it really is. We avoid. This is, when we talk about opening consciousness, this is about accepting reality. Not reality in general, you can't do that, but reality of the way things are right now, in this moment. That reality. In no book does it say you're not supposed to hurt, you're not supposed to grieve, you're not supposed to have negative emotions, you're not supposed to lose confidence in yourself sometimes, and all the other things that are part of our humanness. It's part of our humanness. Why not embrace it all? Why not finally be the advocate for who you are instead of criticizing yourself so much and being harsh to yourself? Your distress is coming from hiding, from trying to hide things, and from trying not to feel bad. Why don't you just feel bad for a little while? Why don't you see what's there? If you will be honest with yourself, we can probably resolve that. In fact, I know we can. But it's about embracing everything, not about pushing it away. Distress tolerance skills. What do you want from somebody else that's distressing you? Because you want something. Bottom line, you want something. Not they want something. You want something. Another part of that is this world is changing constantly. It's challenging us. We're supposed to, I said in my first book, The Life You Want, which you can get on my website, I think, that the first line of it is, this is the age of individual consciousness. And everything from now on is going to depend on that for you. Individual consciousness means that you better be moving. You better get over your issues and move with the times, because the times, they are a-changing. Thank you, Bob Dylan. They are. There's so much in this world that we don't know about. Putin makes a move. Biden makes a move. This person sneezes. Oh my God, pundits are all over talking about what that could mean. You know why? Because the general public cannot stand not knowing, and you better be comfortable with the not knowing, because all that's just ridiculous palaver. Because the truth is, we got to get comfortable with not knowing. Life is an improvisation. We're supposed to be able to do that well. This isn't about, I'm not safe. You see, and that's the bottom line here, isn't it? I'm not safe unless I know. Really? Yeah, we are. As Jay said, we are in rapid change now. We sure are. But you're safe. You're fine in this moment. So get to this moment. And we've got to, but to get to this moment, the mindfulness that we talk about, that's so hard to get to, we've got to resolve all this stuff that tells you you're not safe and makes you do all of these things in your emotional immaturity, that every time you use them, you convince yourself you need to use them again and again and again. You see, it's an entrenchment that happens. Jay calls it the invasion improv. I like that. The fact is, life is an improvisation. We're going to talk about that probably next week. Do I have it written down here? At one point, I think I do have improvisation written down. As an old acting team, maybe I should just go on and cover it right now. I think that sometimes you don't understand, if you haven't been in an improv class, what I'm talking about. So let me explain it. So improvisation is when you take two people. Let's talk about it acting-wise first, and then we'll talk about it, how in life it translates. You take two people, and you just start a scene. Well, they've got to have in their head who they are, that kind of thing, and where they are, and that sort of stuff. And the rule is the first person to say it makes it the reality. So if you think it's a sunny day on the beach, but I'm the first to speak and I say, my God, here we are in London and it's raining again and my umbrella can only hold one and I'm sorry, what am I going to do? Oh my God. And you're pregnant, even if you're a man. I mean, anything goes in improv, right? What are you going to do with that? Now, if the other person says, it's not raining, it's sunny and I'm on the beach, they just shut it down. There's no place to go. Or if they judge, well, that was a stupid remark that you just made, they've shut it down. There's no place to go. So judgment shuts it down. Resisting shuts it down. Right? Being attached to your own reality shuts it down instead of going with. You hear? Not listening shuts it down. Not cooperating shuts it down. So what does all that mean to you? And when I say life is an improvisation, cooperation with the highest self. You don't need to know, because improvisation, you don't know what the other person's going to say. You just go with. It has a lot of lessons in that for us. Yes, and Jay said, and thank you so much, Jay, because this is indeed something I wanted to say. Improvisation classes are great for dealing with scenes. It teaches you about yourself. You know, I said I took a sculpture class one time, and that helped me, you know. I think that improvisation classes are wonderful. When the COVID thing lifts a little more, it seems to be lifted right now, you might seriously want to look into a very good improvisation class. The nice thing about improvisation is it gets you totally here in the moment. You have to listen. You have to just go with a reaction. Okay. The next one, find a way to manage difficult emotions. Yes, well, why are they difficult? They're difficult because they're unresolved. They're difficult because you want something from somebody else instead of dealing with it internally yourself. They're difficult for a lot of reasons. They are reminiscent of the past, something that hasn't been addressed. So address those things, guys. Hello, John. Hey, dear heart. I'm so glad that you're with us today, John. I look for you each week. I'm glad you're here. He goes on to say, look at challenges as opportunities. Absolutely. Again, you know, do you believe that when a door shuts, it's over? I would suggest you not do that, because that's cutting off the energy instead of going, okay, that door closed. What am I supposed to do with that energy? Open another door, try it again, see if it's really closed, see if it's locked this time. Let's do something else with that energy. Keep going. It's just God trying to move you around and give you what you want. Practice your communication skills, he says. And I'm all for that. Practice your communication skills. Trust others to with your innermost thoughts and feelings. But you keep to remember that the art of communication is knowing who you're talking to. Everybody can't take everything of you. Isn't that something? Everybody can't take everything of you. A lot of people can. You know you found a true friend when somebody can. But you've got to know what you can say and what you can't say to some people. And that's just the truth of life. Okay, so that's the art of communication. Okay, yes. Jay says he's going to have to listen to the archives, and I suggest you all listen to the archives. I've got to, in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to take some time off for a week or two because I'll be traveling. And what I want to say to you is a really good way to use that time, because you give me these wonderful 90 minutes every Sunday morning, is to go back into the archives on YouTube, on Blog Talk Radio, and Facebook Live, and listen to these things on a variety of subjects. And then you'll really kind of get into this mindset, to this groove of what we're talking about here. I had the reason I hesitated is I have a woman I know who she may be listening today. That's part of is where I used to go get facials when I lived in a certain city, and she would always say, "I listen every Sunday morning, and I don't understand a thing you're talking about." But I listen. So that's wonderful. So for heaven's sakes, go and listen to these things from the start. All right, recognize you have a choice of how to respond. Absolutely. You have two minds that we've talked about before, the ego child's mind, the higher self mind. We're trying to change the momentum from the ego child's mind to the higher self mind. And it takes some doing. It takes a lot of energy, doesn't it? It does. All change requires energy. But it's an energy that's going to pay off like you won't believe. So I really suggest you use it that way. Use cognitive reframing, this is his term, to change thought patterns and emotional responses. I think that bears maybe our giving you an example. So how about this example? You think immediately when you get shut down by something like that story I told you earlier with the boss shutting my friend down. Instead of immediately going to, they don't like me, she doesn't like me, I've done something wrong, you reframe that to become, look, I'm a nice person and I mean well. And until I hear otherwise, I'm going to work from the premise that I'm liked and that I have done a good job to the best of my ability. How about going from a new premise? You get it? I think a lot of our premises need changing. And we've got to realize why we have an old premise like they don't like me. Child's mind first thought that they thought, but that's not true anymore. Just not. Jay said, how do we respond in the ego child's mind to taking things personally? It's a good point. It's easy. We've got to remember that if we're taking something personally, it is the ego child's mind. That's the first thing I go to. You've got to understand which mind you're coming from. If you take it personally, ego child's mind, possibly rejection, sensitive, dysphoria. So we've got to go back and we've got to look at that, because is that true now? No, I think all of you all are dear, likable, sweet people. I hope you feel that about me. We have a pretty good relationship here, going back and forth. But you tend to give those unresolved things in your childhood more power than they should be. That's the whole reason that you take things personally. My mother didn't love me the way she should, we say. My father didn't love me the way. My brothers and sisters. I was trying to keep a family of satellites together by becoming the glue that held us all together, but nobody cared. And you sacrificed yourself for it. I'm just making up a scenario right now. You sacrificed yourself, or you abandoned yourself, and then now you're at 40 years old wondering who you are. I mean, that's just an example. So then we start seeing everything in life as I don't matter to them, I don't matter to them, I don't matter to them, I don't matter to them. But is that true now? No. It's what you have framed in your head according to the past. So if you don't address the past and why you feel the way you do, it's just not going to go away, this taking things personally. You're going to have to remind yourself, wait a minute, I'm taking things personally. How am I going to... And here's something I want to put on the table. I wasn't going to put this on the table, but I think I should here. When we try to talk ourselves out of it, it's the ego child's mind trying to talk the ego child's mind out of feeling that way. But you don't get anywhere because you're still in the ego child's mind. So this has got to be a deepening of consciousness, a real waking up, a real saying, wait a minute, nothing exists but this moment. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to feel that way? Is it true? Let's go to that person and find out. Because what happens when we take things personally is we are afraid to go and find out what's really going on. Hey, I'm trying to do something weird with it. Can you tell me what you really meant by that? And then somebody will say, here's the way it is. And it has nothing to do with you. I'm sorry you felt that way. But you don't give them a chance to do that because you don't take a chance on love, those of you that are doing this. You don't take a chance on being loved. You learned you weren't. You think you're unlovable. I say bull hockey to that. That's what I say. Okay. Moving along. Thank you, though, for Jay, for that. It says, work on accepting your emotions. Easier said than done, right? Because the acceptance that I'm talking about, the bringing back of energy, the embracing of your humanness, by the way, where your divinity is, it's in your humanness. It's in the acceptance of that. Because then you have all the energy that will take you down into who you really are, which is as love. We've got to address the issues here that are taking you out of that. If you never look at the past, if you try to avoid it, if you're wearing an image, if you're in fantasy, wonderful person. Guys, it's just going to work against you until you open that and have the energy come back and you resolve it. I got so tickled. I always get tickled with people that get to this point in their work with me when they say, I don't care what you find, just find it and let's resolve it. Isn't that wonderful? I'm laid bare. I'm everything. I think that is one of the most spiritual things that you can feel. Because it means that you're willing to embrace all this humanness in you. Okay? Thank you, sweetheart. Guys, I'm going to stop there because there's so much to say about all of this. So we're going to come back next week with the rest of talking about this, and hopefully then we can talk about these incredible characteristics that belong to an emotionally intelligent person, which will also challenge you to think a little differently about yourself. Let's do a prayer because we've only got 5 minutes left. Put us, let's get rid of what we can so far, okay? Of the ego child's mind. Thank you, dear God, for all of this. We appreciate all of this. Now, as we challenge the ego child's mind to go to the truth, thank you. Oh, aren't you sweet? Judy and Sharon, y'all are precious. Thank you. Sharon said, you've given me a great deal to work on this week. Oh, that's wonderful. Y'all are darling. Thank you, Becky. Dear God, we surrender what we can of all of this old stuff. Well, Michelle, by all means, darling, our archive, please go, you guys go back to the archives. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, dear God, for this information and for it touching us in our own personal ways. We ask now that great courage and awareness and the ability to embrace the truth of us come to the fore, that we open now to release some of these things into our highest self to be transformed, that we may experience the love that we are all week. And also, when we fall out of this, let us see clearly what we're doing. No deception. Let us embrace the reality that is here and now, on the ego child's mind level and the highest self level, because it's all God, and all of it is working together for our good. We open to our good. We open to change. We open to the peace about change that we can now accept. And we thank you, God, for the healing that is here and now in us. We also pray for the world, for the fighters and soldiers all over the world. We pray for the leaders of countries that they may deepen beyond the ego child's mind, and that they may have a peaceful and powerful mindset of love eventually. We are all being taught in our ways, dear God, and we ask that these things are so in our own personal lives. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, dear God, for everything and for these precious people. And we'll see you next week, everybody. And we'll start right where we left off, huh? Okay. Take care now. Be safe. Be well. Be happy. All right. Bye-bye.